People of the internet, today we're finally going to learn if Tony Hinchcliffe is a comedian or the king of the incel variety show. Let's find out.
Tony Hinchcliffe, comedian or podcast sidekick? So it looks like Tony Hinchcliffe finally got canceled. Not by the evil woke mob like he always dreamed of, but by something much scarier: bad ticket sales. Yeah, instead of getting banned from Twitter for saying the N word, Tony got axed by WWE after they realized no one was paying to watch Tony Hinchcliffe headline SummerSlam. Because apparently nothing packs an arena full of wrestling fans like a skinny guy in a tuxedo telling fart jokes. Now,
You see, this confirms something. The Rogan sphere is only able to be supported by those in the Rogan sphere. No one out of the Rogan sphere thinks these guys aren't just like, people that tons of people all over the world relate to. They relate to a specific group, and that is the Rogan sphere. And the Rogan sphere, you could describe them with many words, but I would like it's lost men, lost lonely men. We could think of other words. And Tony, who loves wrestling, loves the WWE, got shut down because nobody outside of the Rogan sphere, i.e., the WWE fans, wanted anything to do with his event. How can you claim to be one of the greatest comedians in the world? And I think the total he sold was 187 tickets. I might have been able to sell 100, beg, borrow, steal. You know what I mean? This is the guy that sells out stadiums. The problem with the Rogan sphere is they only speak to one group of people: angry men, lost men, lonely men, men that are bitter, men that blame everything on women, men that enjoy dumb humor. And they all those qualities kind of fit into a group of men. They all kind of apply. And anybody with half a brain doesn't give these guys any attention. And you didn't hear anything about this. I didn't hear anything about this. Someone sent me a message telling me about this wrestling thing. And you know how deep, deep, deep that has to wound Tony's ego. You know, he stays inside of Kill Tony. Kill Tony to him is bigger than you would think. Many people, yes, he built it, he worked hard, it's a success story. Yes, that's all true, that does apply. But the main reason Tony hides in Kill Tony is because it protects him from his biggest fear. And that fear is being a comedian. Because if he is a comedian and he has to live off of just his comedy and not Kill Tony, the protection, the insulation of his bubble, then he has to prove all of these claims that they're the best comedians in the world. And at some point, he has to release a special. And Tony has dodged that special for years now. He learned his lesson with his first special, erased it from the internet, and now he hides inside of Kill Tony and its success, and it's the biggest YouTube podcast or comedy, whatever you want to call it. And he hides in there, and he never goes back to comedy. He may do a roast here and there. I don't know if anyone's going to invite him to one anytime soon now, but it doesn't matter. He has a lot of lost, lonely men that'll be willing to put up with the Kill Tony show. And so he can live off that, and he knows that. And he's no longer a comedian. Because where have we heard of Tony doing comedy? I don't even think I heard of him doing any sets in the mothership, and he should, because technically he's supposed to put out a special within a year, I think, because he has one more Netflix Kill Tony episode he has to do, unless Netflix acts that, because they just keep getting rated lower and lower each episode. But if he does do one more episode with Netflix, that means the last episode has to be his comedy special. So he should be working out at the mothership. I don't know. But a lot of you didn't know what Kill Tony was really about. And it's his shield from comedy. Because he doesn't really, like, do you really know Tony Hinchcliffe for comedy? Maybe in the beginning, but not lately.
Now, this has to be a pretty hard pill to swallow for a man with an ego the size of Joe Rogan's biceps. Imagine going from opening for Rogan's arena shows to hosting your own event, only to discover the only people buying tickets are your Uber drivers and a few stray Kill Tony groupies. This cancellation also comes just months after Tony bombed horrendously at the roast of WrestleMania. It was so bad that WWE, an organization that literally scripts men in tights pretending to fight, said, yeah, this is too fake even for us, and wiped every trace of Tony's performance from the internet. You know you're doing comedy wrong when wrestling fans, the same people who think Burt Kreischer is hilarious, collectively decide you're the hack. And if that wasn't enough humiliation, let's not forget Trump himself once had to publicly clarify, I have no idea who Tony Hinchcliffe is.
I have no idea.
Do you notice how when Tony steps out of the Kill Tony world and he does other performances, you know he did that WWE roast a few months back, and if you remember, there was a big controversy, and the WWE was taking every clip, there were like cell phone videos, there was audio clips. I was sent like the full thing, the full audio, and I listened to it, and it was I don't think it was the best. And do you notice, the point is, do you notice whenever he does a performance outside of Kill Tony, it just gets magically erased off the internet? Go look for his first special. It's out there, but you can't watch it on any streaming platform. You got to go watch some bootleg upload. It's crazy. Why is Tony claiming to be a comedian, right? But never does comedy and always runs from his comedy. And if he's cornered and has to do it, he makes any evidence of it disappear. How, at this point, if that's the case, can we call Tony Hinchcliffe a comedian? Let known one of the best in the world. Where is the proof? Where is the proof, Tony? It's really hard to find.
Who he is. Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something, and I have no idea who he is. Never saw him, never heard of him.
That's brutal. When Donald Trump, a man who hires Kid Rock for serious events, says you're irrelevant, that's game over, buddy. So this raises the question.
Yes, if we're presented with this, we would think Donald Trump not acknowledging Tony Hinchcliffe is severe. But in all honesty, Donald Trump denies knowing a lot of people he was friends with. And a lot of things. I mean, it's his thing to deny. So I'm pretty sure Tony met the president. I just wanted to hash this out. I'm pretty sure Tony met the president if he was performing at his rally. I mean, they're backstage. One of the perks would be meeting Donald Trump because, you know, the Rogan sphere idolizes him. And I'm sure at least he got like a minute, a handshake, of how you're doing. Oh, I heard you're doing big things. I heard you're doing big things at the Rogan sphere. You know, he probably got one of those. Let's go. So I don't think that is, but in all actuality, I think Donald Trump, if there's any sign of trouble, he's denying you. Just saying. So I wouldn't take that as like, ooh, I would take that as, yeah, when you say it. But in reality, he does that to any kind of accusation, accountability. It's just who he is.
Is Tony Hinchcliffe in 2025 even a real stand-up comedian? Or is he just a witty podcast host who gets a couple good one-liners in while riding shotgun on Kill Tony? Because here's the thing, Kill Tony is massively successful. The live band, the rotating celebrity guests, the chaotic open mic format, it's a genius show. But strip away the safety net, the circus around him, And can Tony actually carry a show on his own? Well, we kind of got our answer when Tony popped up on Country Club Adjacent a few weeks ago. This was his big chance to show these guys what world-class roasting looks like. And instead of dropping bombs, Tony dropped Fart Knocker. Yes, the self-proclaimed king of roasting busted out language that would get you bullied in a middle school cafeteria. At a certain point, the other comics just stopped playing along and started roasting him, suggesting he wears fake Rolexes, dressing like a broke substitute teacher. And let's be real, Tony hates being told he looks poor. That's the one insult that cuts deeper than any slur he's ever written.
See, the thing is when he's faced with guys outside of the Rogan sphere that don't kiss up to him, that don't want to earn favors for him on his show, when he's set with, I'm sure these guys look like they're entertainers, when he is put over there and there's no influence, there's no bowing down to Joe Rogan from these guys, he, appears fake. Because the thing is Tony is always projecting masculinity, wealth, being the best at everything, but that's all protected by the Rogan sphere. And nobody dare speak up about that, because if they do, they could lose their opportunities, their shot at fame, etc. But you could see all of that as fake, and it is all projection, because when he is put and with a random group of guy with none of that influence, he can't even hang with them. They end up making fun of him. All of that projection is what these people see oozing off of him as fakeness, and they just roast the shit out of him. He can't even hang with the boys. He can't even. It's such a... It is true that it just shares, the Rogan sphere shares so many cult-like aspects to it. You have the leader, Joe Rogan, and then I'm sure Tony Hinchcliffe is high up there as one of calling the shots or having some sway. And then you have all these other, and everybody is talking shit about each other, but everybody is also walking on eggshells in the presence of each other, because everyone doesn't want to mess up or make the wrong move that could lower their position in the cult or can ruin their chances. But they're also watching when they can strike other people, or when other people are weak and they can make their move to ascend. So it creates this atmosphere of everybody's just completely fake, completely projecting that they don't have any faults, that everything they do is the best, that they're the top in the world, and everyone's just playing nice and smiling. And when you get in the real world, it just don't work like that. That's why cults isolate themselves, and that's why the Rogan sphere isolates himself, protects the green room. The green room is just such a crazy thing. You could just talk about all aspects of the green room, because Joe Rogan is keeping an eye on it and only letting people come in that he vibes with, or in reality vibes with what he wants. The more you look at it, it's really quite weird and a social experiment, and a part of disturbing human interactions that always end in catastrophe.
Now, when Tony does get to pre-write his material, he's solid. He used to ghostwrite for Comedy Central roasts, Justin Bieber, Rob Lowe, Tom Brady, and back then he really was funny, but mostly because the bar was set at better than Shaquille O'Neal trying to read cue cards. But when you put Tony in a lineup with actual killers, Shane Gillis, Big J. Okerson, Joe List, he gets exposed fast. Shane Gillis roasted him into dust at the Louis J. Gomez roast without even touching the cancel me playbook Tony relies on. Shane called him Matthew McConaughey's skeleton and young Sheldon. Meanwhile, Tony's still doing jokes about abortions and Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. It's like the difference between a chef cooking a gourmet steak and a drunk guy microwaving Hot Pockets. Sure, both are technically food, but one keeps you coming back, and the other leaves you wondering if you should just stop eating altogether. And that's Tony's problem. Somewhere along the way, he confused being shocking with being funny. Instead of writing clever roasts, he's chasing edginess for the sake of edginess. The irony? He wants to get canceled. But instead of becoming some free speech martyr, he's just becoming irrelevant. Because when your entire act revolves around saying the most offensive thing possible, eventually the crowd realizes you're not edgy, you're just lazy. So, is Tony Hinchcliffe still a comedian? Technically, yes. But if he keeps this up, he's going to be remembered less as a stand up comic and more as the podcast host who laughed way too hard at his own jokes. And honestly, that might be the most brutal roast of all. Tony Hinchcliffe.
There you go. You know, my opinion is he's not a comedian anymore. He is a variety show host, the king of the incels. He's the king of, I guess, incel comedy, I would say. Someone mentioned that before. And this guy too. Notice that everybody that looks at it outside of this, they all say it's not funny. The jokes are lazy, low quality, dumb humor, childish, just shocking to be shocking. And if you look at the Kill Tony show, you can see that it went more and more that way when he broke up, what would you call it, with the original Kill Tony members, like Jeremiah, the band he had. You know, Jeremiah, as much as there's controversy between them, he kept him accountable, because Jeremiah, whether you like him or not, he would always come with a costume, something ready to tell jokes, some kind of theme. He was always prepared, and that kept Tony accountable, and he couldn't just go into these lazy political themes that he does now. And when he lost Jeremiah and the band that all basically kept him in check, that is when he could bring in new members, which would have to play by his rules in order to stay there. And he could lean into whatever he wanted to. And he leaned into the political, and he leaned into the edgy humor. And basically, I mean, that's what made him king of the incel comedy scene. Those are the types of people that do that shit on the internet. Those are the types of people that do that stuff in life. And Tony just kept pushing himself and his show that way. And now that's where he lives. And that's what he'll be remembered for. Tony is either going to have to knock this Kill Tony special at the end of his 4-show series, and have to redefine himself, prove everybody wrong. Or, in my opinion, he's going to be living off of his ego still. He's not going to put that much hard work. He's going to think everything, every thought, every bit that he creates for this special is gold because he's one of the best. And it's going to fall on its face just like the 2 previous Netflix episodes did. I don't know now, I haven't checked, but I think last week they were still, both of those Kill Tony Netflix episodes were still ranked lower than Joe Rogan's Burn the Boats. He took it lower than Joe Rogan's Burn the Boats. I think Tony can live off of his fan base and keep playing his little shtick and be just fine. There will always be those types of people that want that shit. 4chan is there for a reason, right? But if he ever wants to have a legacy in comedy, or he ever wants to prove he is one of the greatest comedians in the world, he's going to have to do something different, and he's going to have to push himself. But I don't think in his position he will, because he'll just call everybody else haters, which is true in some sense. Because here we are not agreeing with Tony, and Tony doesn't agree. Who's right? Who knows? It's all a matter of opinion. But I think with the Kill Tony releases on Netflix and them doing so bad, he has to know this is a changing point for him. He's going to rise to it, or he's going to do what I said the Rogan sphere is doing and shelter in, keep tabs on everybody, keep his followers, which Kill Tony, the fans are very culty, and just let that dissipate slowly, or try to hang on to as many of them as he can for as long as he can so he keeps getting paid. Is it right or wrong? Who really knows? But if we were looking at a master of his craft, somebody that claims to be the best, or somebody that truly is an expert of their field, we would point out Tony as a comedian is doing a very, very poor job and doing a disservice to the comedy community and other comedians that would love to have his level of exposure. And for us, the viewer, or us as humans, when we look at someone doing that poorly at their craft, in just that sense, it annoys us. We think, what a shameful way to honor your passion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Peace.